Okay, so have you heard about this AI that can practically write like the next great American novel or something? Compose a symphony. Maybe even answer your emails like Shakespeare himself.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
We've all heard the buzz, right? Like
Uh,
large language models are totally changing the game. But today we're going deeper. We're diving into the mechanics, like the nuts and bolts of how these systems are actually learning to think more like us.
that's right. And, it's not just about making AI seem smarter on the surface. It's about genuinely expanding what they're actually capable of.
Yeah, exactly.
Our deep
Uh,
dive starts with this fascinating research paper. It's called Chain of Thought Empowers Transformers to Solve Inherently Serial Problems.
Whoa, inherently serial problems.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of intense. What's that all about?
So think of it this way. Imagine trying to make a complex recipe, but like without following the steps in order.
Yeah,
Total chaos, right?
yeah.
That's the challenge AI has faced for a long time. They've been amazing at things like image recognition, where they can process tons of information all at once, what we call parallel processing. But when it comes to tasks that require a specific sequence of steps, each building on the last, traditional AI has struggled.
So it's like they've got all the ingredients for some like gourmet meal, but no clue about the recipe itself.
Exactly. And that's where chain of thought prompting, or COTI, comes in. This paper explores how giving AI a more structured way of thinking can lead to some pretty remarkable results.
So instead of just throwing a problem at an AI and saying go,
Hmm.
we're kind of walking it through the reasoning process, showing it the steps.
Precisely. Like instead of simply asking, what's the capital of France, we might give an example like, Paris is the most populous city in France. The most populous city is often the capital. Therefore, Paris is likely the capital of France. We're essentially teaching it to think out loud.
And does that actually like make a difference? Do the AIs actually learn from seeing those steps, or are they just like mimicking what we show them?
Well, that's what's so fascinating. The research suggests that even when the reasoning provided isn't perfect, the act of laying it out step by step has a profound impact on the AI's ability to learn. It's like it's not just about the content of the reasoning, but the structure itself. It's giving AI the mental scaffolding to tackle those inherently serial problems we talked about.
So it's like we're giving them the tools to figure things out on their own, not just feeding them answers.
Exactly. And it actually makes you wonder, like, how often do we as humans solve problems even when we don't have all the answers up front? We kind of start working through it step by step, and somehow the solution emerges.
It's like how I tackle a messy closet. Like I have no idea where things should go, but once I start like sorting, it just somehow comes together.
Exactly. And this research really highlights how powerful that process can be. In fact, the paper illustrates this beautifully by putting AI to the test with four very specific problems. Think of it like an obstacle course for their artificial brains.
Okay, so what were these AI challenges? Did they like make them write a sonnet or something?
Close, but not quite. They started with something called modular addition. It sounds kind of intimidating, but it's actually a simpler task that's pretty easily broken down into parallel computations. Think of it like a clock face where the numbers wrap around. So 10 plus 4 doesn't equal 14. It like cycles back to 2.
Okay, so kind of like a clock. Got it. What was next in the AI obstacle course?
Next up was something called permutation composition. So imagine shuffling a deck of cards. Each shuffle creates a specific order right, which is called a permutation. Now imagine combining those shuffles. So that's permutation composition. The research focused on a specific type called S5, which, believe it or not, has real-world applications in fields like cryptography.
Cryptography, like codes and ciphers and stuff. Okay, now that's something I want to learn more about, but let's not get sidetracked. What were the final two challenges they gave these AIs?
Right. So the third challenge was iterated squaring. Basically, you take a number and multiply it by itself repeatedly. Think of it like exponential growth, but with multiplication instead of addition. Might sound simple, but it actually forms the basis for a lot of encryption methods. The fourth and final problem was the circuit value problem.
Circuit value problem. That sounds pretty complex, like designing a computer chip or something.
Kind of. Imagine a diagram of logical operations, those A and D or NAC gates you might remember from, like, computer science class. The challenge is to figure out what the output of a complex circuit will be based on a given set of inputs.
So they really put these AIs through their paces, huh? How did the AIs do against these challenges? Did code actually like make a difference?
So here's where it gets really interesting. For that first one, the modular addition, the AIs did pretty well, even without Cody. Since this task can be easily parallelized, their processors could handle it no problem. However, for the other three challenges, The AIs without Coty really struggled, especially as the problems became more complex. They either needed to be incredibly deep with like tons of processing layers, or they simply couldn't solve the problems reliably at all.
Makes sense. Those other challenges all require that step-by-step logical reasoning, which is really what Coty is all about.
Exactly, but here's the kicker. When the researchers applied chain of thought prompting, even with relatively simple AI models, their performance skyrocketed. Especially for those more sequential problems, it was like a complete game changer.
Wow, so just by giving these AIs a little structure, a way to break down the problem they went from struggling to solving, that's amazing.
It really is. It shows how powerful that shift from knowing what to knowing how can be. Just like memorizing a formula versus truly understanding the logic behind it. And here's where it gets really interesting for us.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, if Cody can have such a dramatic impact on AI, could it also hold lessons for how we approach problem solving?
I see what you mean. So you're saying that this whole chain of thought idea,
Yeah.
it could actually help us unlock our own hidden potential.
Absolutely. Think about it.
Hmm.
How often do we get stuck because we feel overwhelmed by a problem?
Mm.
We don't have all the answers, so we just stall. But what if instead of focusing on the unknowns, we focused on the process?
You're saying even if we don't know the entire solution right away, the simple act of breaking down a problem into smaller steps, of thinking out loud like those AIs, could make a world of difference.
Precisely. It's about shifting our mindset from, I don't know the answer, to let's figure out the steps to get there. This research suggests that the power of structured thinking shouldn't be underestimated, both for AI and for us.
So the next time I'm staring at a mountain of a task instead of freaking out, I should channel my inner AI and just start by laying out the steps, even if they're just baby steps.
Exactly. Embrace the process. You might be surprised by what you can achieve. It's like that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Loki is showing us that sometimes it's not about having all the answers. It's about knowing how to think our way through to the solution. And that's a powerful takeaway for all of us.
That is some seriously mind-expanding stuff. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure.
And for you listeners, keep those mental gears turning. Until next time, happy problem solving.